Alright, in section 9.5, we're going to look at solving trig equations. We're going to have two cases. It's going to be over a particular interval, or it's just going to say find all possible solutions, and it won't give you an interval. So if it's not over an interval, then you could have infinite number of solutions, and I'll show you what that looks like. If we look at cosine of x equals 1. So the first thing I'm going to do, go ahead and write it down, is equal to 1. And then what you can do is, well, where is cosine of x equal to 1? So I'm going to go back to my unit circle, and at this point right here, oops, sorry, not that point right there. At this point right here, where it's 0 degrees, there's a 1 and there's a 0. And remember, any point on the circle, it's always cosine theta first, and then sine of theta. So this one right here is really saying cosine of 0 is equal to 1. Okay, so x is equal to 0. But that's not the only solution. We're trying to find all solutions. And notice it didn't give us an interval. Okay, so if this is an answer right here, then the only way to get back to that is if I go around the entire circle. Okay, so if I add 360 to this, so therefore our answer would be x such that x is equal to 0 plus 360 degrees, and then we would tag a k on. Now k can be from 0 up until whatever it wants to be, because I could add 360 once, or twice, or 3 times, and I can keep going, and I can get back to this point right here. Okay, which this would boil down to x is equal to just 360k, since we were adding a 0. And this would be all of our solutions for cosine of x is equal to 1. If we're looking at cosine of x is equal to 0, so cosine of x equal to 0, okay, I'm going to go back to unit circle, and where's cosine equal to 0? Well, that's right here and right here. So at 90 and at 270. Okay, so we could say x is equal to 90 or 270. But notice it said find all solutions, and they don't give me a boundary or an interval. So if I start at 90 to get to the next answer, 270, that has a distance of 180. If I was here to get to the next answer, I would just add 180 and add 180 and add 180. Okay, so x such that x equals 90 degrees plus 180k. So I can add as many 180s to this 90 and get back to the same position over and over, and this position as well. So this would be our final answer. For cosine of x is negative 1. Still it says find all solutions. Doesn't give us an interval. So where is cosine negative 1? That is right here, negative 1. Okay, and that's the only answer. I don't have 2. So to get here, to get back to the spot, I would add 360, however many times I want to. Okay, so x is equal to 180. Therefore, your solution set will be x is equal, or x such that x equals 180 plus 360k. And that will be your final answer for that one as well. We are not in the unit circle, so I don't have a 0, a 1, or a -1. I have -1/2. So we're going to just rewrite it. And then my next question is, well, where is cosine negative? Because I have -1/2. So if we come over here, all students take calculus. All matrix functions are positive here, only sine and its reciprocal, tangent and its reciprocal, cosine and its reciprocal. So you'll have a cosine will be negative here in the second and in the fourth quadrant. So I'll have two triangles. Okay, this is telling me that this is x over r. Remember, r is your radius. It's never negative. So it must be -1 for our x, 2 for r. And if I've got a 1 and a 2, this has got to be the square root of 3. This one will be negative, which means directly across from the square root of 3, you have 60 degrees. Okay. Now I don't want 60 degrees. I want the angle in standard position. Okay. So to get the angle in standard position, if I'm in quadrant 2, we would do 180 minus 60, which that's going to give us 120. And then to find the standard position for an angle in the third quadrant, we would do 180 plus 60. That would give us 240. Okay, so I have an answer here and here. So at this point right here, that's the 120. At this point right here, that's the 240. There's not an equal distance between the two, so I have to do this separately. So for the first one, so we've got x is equal to 120 or 240, but that's not all of our solutions. That's just a couple of them. So we'll say x such that x is equal to 120. So right here. And how do we get back to that? Well, we just keep adding 360 to it. So plus 360k. And then we have another one. So or x is equal to 240. So at this point right here, to get back to that point, you just keep adding 360 to it. So plus 360. Okay. And this right here would be your entire solution set for cosine x is equal to -1/2. Okay. Find all solutions for cosine x is equal to -2. Okay. Well, if you remember the graph of cosine, it starts at 1 and does this right here. Okay. So it will never go above 1 and it never goes below -1. Well, we know that it's supposed to go between 1 and -1. Since this 2 is outside of this range right here, then what we can say is no solution. Okay, because if you're just looking at cosine of x, you'll have this shape right here. So your graph won't ever cross this 2 up here. So you really don't have a function at 2, which means if you don't have a function anywhere at 2, there's no solution. Okay, and then we'll look at sine of x is equal to 1. So we're going to write sine of x equal to 1. Well, where is sine equal to 1? If you go back to the unit circle, this is always cosine of theta, comma sine of theta. So sine will be the second number. Okay, so that's a 0. There's a 1. That's a 0. That's a -1. So the only solution is right here, where x is equal to 90. But that's just one solution. We need to find all of them. To get back to this answer right here, you would just keep adding 360 to it. Okay, so x such that x is equal to 90 degrees plus 360k. And that's it. Okay, if we look at sine of x is equal to 0, so sine of x is equal to 0. So I'm going to go back to my unit circle and find where is sine equal to 0. So I need that second number equal to 0. Well, there's 1. That's a 1. There's another one. That's a negative 1. So I have answers at 0 and 180. So x is equal to 0 or 180. So to get from this answer to this one, I would add 180. From this one to this one, add 180. Add 180. Add 180. Okay? So our solution set will be x such that x is equal to 0 plus keep adding 180. Or this will reduce down to x such that x is equal to 180k. And that would be your final answer right there. Okay, find all solutions for sine of x equal to negative 1. Okay, where is sine or that second number equal to negative 1? Just right here at 270. So to get back to that 270 or this answer right here, you would keep adding 360. So x is equal to 270. That's just one answer. My solution set will be x such that x is equal to 270 plus 360. Okay, and that's your final answer. Sine of x is equal to negative 1/2. So I don't have a 1, a negative 1, or a 0, so I won't use the unit circle. The next question I would ask is, okay, where is sine negative? So all students take calculus, so sine will be negative in the third and the fourth quadrants. Okay, so this is y over r. Remember, r cannot be negative, so this must be a negative 1. So negative 1 for y, negative 1 for y, a 2 for r, a 2 for r. And if I got a 2 and a 1, this has got to be a square root of 3. Square root of 3, and this one will be negative. Straight across your 1s, these will be 30 degrees. This is coming from our special triangles. Okay, but I don't want 30 degrees. I want the angle in standard position. So for the angle in standard position for the third quadrant, I'm going to take 180 and add 30, and that will give me 210. And then for the fourth quadrant, I will take 360 minus 30, and that will give me 330. Okay, so I have an answer right here and right here. Okay, there's not an equal distance between the two. Okay, so I'll have to look at them individually. So we've got x is equal to 210 or 330, but I need to find all my solutions. So this will be x such that x is equal to 210. So if I'm at this point right here, to get back to it, I would keep adding 360. So plus 360k, or x is equal to 330. So here's my answer here. To get back to it, I would just keep adding 360 to it. So plus 360k. And that would be my entire solution set for this particular problem. All the solutions for sine of x is equal to 2. This is the same situation for cosine when it was equal to 2. Sine starts at 0 and makes this shape right here. It never went above 1, never went below negative 1. So its range stayed between negative 1 and 1. Since this 2 is outside this range, you have no solution. Because your graph at 2, it'll never cross at 2. So therefore, since you don't have a graph here, then you have no solution.